Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of kick-butt heroines in dark fantasy worlds, and I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking Amazon best-selling author, known for her hot billionaires, cocky alphas, and sexy bad boys and the women they love. Known for books such as Dirty Little Secrets and Those Three Words, we are talking to the one and only Alexis Winter. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. That was a nice little intro.
You are amazing. Thank you for coming
Oh,
on.
thank you so much for having me. I super appreciate it. It's always kind of exciting, to do something like this. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I am so excited about having you on, and I would love to know what got you into writing and how you found publishing your first book. Take me back to the start of your journey.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like it's kind of been since I was really, really young because I grew up in a home without a television. And so I think that like that just kind of encouraged my creativity. My sister and we love to read. We used to read. So like the first things that we used to read when we were really little, we were obsessed with, there was these Frog and Toad, The Adventures of Frog and Toad, these little books. And then we got really into like Goosebumps and R.L. Stein and like, the horror genre. And we loved it so much. And so she and I actually wrote two books together when we were little. I still have them. We even illustrated them, hand-drawn photos. I mean, they're not quality, but I mean, they're written on wide ruled paper and they're great though. Like I think I was probably 8 years old maybe when we wrote them. And she's about 3.5 years older than me. So we wrote those. And then I remember I ended up writing a book with a friend of mine when I was in middle school. Again, I was obsessed with horror movies. And horror books. So we wrote our own kind of like teen slasher book because those movies had become super popular when I was that age. And I had kind of started competing in like some competitions in school, like some poetry writing. And then that kind of translated into like what was called original persuasive oratory. So I used to do like debate and write my own like persuasive speeches for competitions. And I thought I was planning to be a lawyer and a judge and study politics. I was just obsessed with all of that. So I thought, yeah, well, this works great because I love to do research writing. And I missed like writing poetry and stuff like that. So like in high school, I kind of got back into more of that side of things and started doing a little bit more creative stuff. And I can remember being in like probably like 15, 16. And my English teacher telling me like, hey, like, have you ever considered studying English or creative writing in college? And I said, no, because this is my hobby and I would never want to make my hobby my job because then I'll end up hating it. And I don't know what adult told me that somewhere along the lines and I believed it. So I didn't study English in school and I really just put off any sort of creative writing for several years. I just kind of went to college and graduated and got a job and just kind of fell into the pattern of like not really thinking about writing anymore. And it was hard because that was always like my outlet, and I thoroughly loved it. And I used to dream of being a writer in like the most romantic sense. I thought, oh my goodness, I'd be in a cabin and it's gloomy and it's just you and your thoughts. And of course I was like writing on a typewriter, like I was in some Meg Ryan romance. And I remember just like having those fantasies, but I thought, well, I'll never be a writer because in order to ever get like a traditionally published contract, it's extremely hard. You hear about how people at Random House or whatever are reading thousands of manuscripts and rejecting all of them. And so I just kind of like, it wasn't a serious dream of mine, but I ended up my life took a really unexpected turn. And I lived in Chicago. I'm from Illinois. So it took a really unexpected and heartbreaking turn. And I ended up separating from my husband, which was really unfortunate and not what I expected. And I moved to Colorado and I felt like I felt really defeated. And I felt just, I guess, kind of like a loser. Like I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing in life. I had no fulfillment from my job. I worked in technology. I worked in product development. And I know that it's a good career, people make huge careers out of it, but I had no passion in it. And I stumbled across an ad. I think it was a video ad, maybe on YouTube. I don't even remember where I saw it, for self-publishing on Amazon. And I thought, well, that's kind of great. Like, what is that? Like, and so I looked at the course and I started learning, and I had no idea that there was this whole world of people who write their own stuff and just publish it on Amazon. And I thought, wow, well, maybe that's like, even if I never get to pursue it as a career, like if I have that creative outlet where I can write a story, I could publish it. Cause that was always a bucket list item for me, was I want to be a published author someday. So I thought, well, I'm just going to try it. What's the harm? And I was like broke as a joke. I had to put this course, I bought the course and I had to put it on a credit card because I couldn't barely afford to feed myself at that point. And I thought, this is it. Like, it was kind of like the catalyst I needed. I was at kind of the lowest point in my life, unfortunately. And I remember just being desperate to have some sort of fulfillment because I didn't feel that at all in my job. And I thought, I'm going to write a book. I'm not going to tell anybody. I didn't tell anyone, even my sister, who's my best friend. We're super close. I wrote this book. I didn't even get an editor. I knew nothing about any of that. And I think I created the cover on like Canva or something. And I published it. And that was February of 2018. It has since been unpublished. Some of my original works were unpublished. They were not the best and written in third person. And, it's just not what I wanted my brand to be later on. But yeah, I remember thinking to myself, like, I had this like epiphany moment where I was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. This is the fulfillment I've been looking for. And I was like, I had no plan B. I was like, this is the dream. I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be a romance author, and I'm going to do it. And so it just kind of started from there, and I just kept on going. So here I am, still doing it.
That's amazing to hear, though. One, kind of funny that you went from slasher movies to romance, but also this is one thing that I love about writing so much is often for a lot of us, it kind of does start in a way for us to have an outlet, and then we kind of discover who we are through that again. And it's interesting that, as you said, you published those first books and now you're more conscious about your business and your brand, but it was just taking that first step and then the new journey and stumbling blocks as to who you were becoming, should I say, and how those books kind of shaped you in a way as well. What was the moment that you realized you wanted to take it a little bit more seriously? Was there more readers? When did you know you had to take those first books down? What was the catalyst moment for you?
So I remember I had this book called Baby Mistake, and it is book 3 in a older series, one of the first series I ever wrote. It's Billionaire Romance. And those books are still up. It got into the top 100 on Amazon. And I was like, what? I mean, I was still a really new author. It was like this moment of pure joy and pure panic at the same time, because I realized, holy cow, this means a ton of people are seeing my work. It's not that great. I need to make sure that if this is the potential for one of my books, I need to make sure that I'm getting it professionally edited, that I'm really taking the time to make sure that there's not ridiculous plot holes, and I'm not just writing this, at 3 a.m. on a weekend and just hoping for the best. Like, it was kind of that moment where I realized I saw the potential, not only like financially there for me to be like, whoa, I could do this full time. Like I could make a career out of this. I could build a life for myself and financial security that I'm not going to find in a corporate job. And I just realized, I was like, okay, so I need to make sure that I kind of have like and this is what I tell people a lot too, is like, I kind of have like these, every so often I kind of take stock of everything within my business and how things are going. And I just kind of do a little bit of self-editing, because I'm like, hey, if these books aren't that great, or maybe they just need re-edited, or maybe they need new covers. I've done stuff like that where I've taken it down, kind of freshened it up and put it back up there. Or just unpublished some, because like I said, they weren't like, all my books are first person dual point of view now. And those ones weren't. And they also, I wrote 3 books that were all like the same couple, and they were cliffhangers. Learned a hard lesson. Romance readers do not like cliffhangers. Don't do it. So, so I don't do that anymore. But I think that was it for me when I saw the potential there and I saw that book of top 100. I kind of freaked out because I was like, I was manifesting it. Like I was like, I'm going to be a best-selling author. I'm going to do this. And then when it happened, I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for this. What's going on? So yeah, it was, I just kind of realized, I was like, okay, if this is going to have my face and my name, and this is my business, I need to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm giving readers something that's worth the money they're going to spend and the time they're going to spend reading it, and that they're going to want to read the rest of my stuff.
What were some of the resources that you would say helped you, whether it was podcasts you listened to or groups you were part of in Facebook or books that you read? What do you think really helped better your craft and your understanding of it being a business as a whole?
I started kind of networking with a few other authors. I joined a couple groups. I'm in a couple author groups now, very few, I think 3, and I don't tend to be super active. And part of that is because I've learned over the years, I do trust my gut, because if you get a lot of outside noise and other people's input, it can really make you question everything and doubt stuff. So I think that having those kind of other authors that I could bounce ideas off of, some of them were in the same boat as me. We were starting out. There were other authors that had been doing it for 5, 6 years that were making 7 figures. There was like 1 or 2. And I didn't really have like any sort of one-on-one relationship with them where I could like pick their brain, but I would like post a question and maybe get some feedback. But book wise, I would say I think the book that changed everything for me was You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, which I think a lot of people have read. And the crazy story about that is I live in between Denver and Boulder and Colorado, and she came to Boulder for a book signing. And the lady who sat next to me ended up being my editor. She is my ride or die. If she ever leaves me, I'm going to die, because I tell her all the time, I'm like, you can never leave me, because she's a fantastic editor and she's just a wonderful person. And we've become friends. But I met her at that book signing, and that was very early on in my book publishing journey. So we've kind of been together ever since. But I read that book and it was literally just like so eye-opening to me. I had never been exposed to the concepts of like building your life and your dream by manifesting it and thinking those thoughts. And that was a game changer for me. And I started to realize that I was like, listen, if I'm going to make a career out of this, I have to have a game plan, because you're not going to have a boss breathing down your neck and telling you that you have to meet your deadlines. It's going to be you. So I read those books. She has like 3 of them now, I think. And I devoured those books, and I have them on audio. I have them in book form. And so every day I started my morning by rereading a chapter or listening to it. And then I would sit with my journal, and I still do this, and I would write down kind of like the dreams and goals I have for my business, and just continually started like manifesting those things. And like, if I go back in my journal from years ago, and to this day, I still write it. Like, I'm so thankful that I'm an Amazon bestselling author. And, it's kind of like surreal to think about that now. But yeah, I really think that having those books, they were just eye-opening to me. And then I just kind of started researching more on YouTube about people that were like having thoughts into actions and that kind of stuff. And I connected with a couple other authors that I consider friends to this day that, we've never met, but, we'll kind of connect with each other and see how we're doing and what's working for us. And, I think that's really, kind of important in this business to have some people like that.
I'm intrigued now. So we're coming around to about 4.5 years you've been publishing. What year was it that you went full time?
So I left my corporate job in January of 2020. So what happened in 2019 was I originally told myself by June of 2019, I wanted to be working full time as an author. And I told myself I needed to make, I did all my budgeting for like my bills and the business side of things. And I was like, okay, I need to be making this much. And by June of 2019, I was making enough that I could have left my job. But then my company ended up going through a total structural reorganization. They laid off a bunch of people on my team, and I felt really guilty if I left too, because I'm putting even more work on these people if I leave. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stay. I know that I can manage to do my business, like full-time writing, all of that, and still maintain my corporate job. I know I can still do that. So I was like, I'll just stick with this and, for until like October. So I was like, that's when I'm gonna, well, October rolled around, they still hadn't hired anybody. And so I told my boss, I said, listen, I want to leave my job, and go out on my own, but I don't want to leave you guys high and dry. So we can hire somebody to replace me. I'll train them. And so that was like December. Finally hired somebody. And then like we're going into January, and my boss was like, can I convince you to stay till the end of the quarter, which was going to be end of March? And at that point, I was so burned out. I was at a point where I knew one of them was going to have to go. Either I was going to have to cut back on my publishing business, or I was going to have to leave my job. And I just couldn't. I was like, I can't sacrifice my publishing and my writing for this job. And so I just said, I'm, burning the boats. I left the job, and that was right before the pandemic. So, I never second guessed it or questioned it. And I still can't believe it in a way. Like January came of this year, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's been 2 years. Like, this is crazy. Like it's just flown by.
Well deserved, though. Well deserved. You worked your butt off for it.
Thank you.
Well, I'd love to talk about those 3 words. You published that in March this year, and it already has over 4,000 well-loved ratings and reviews on Amazon, which is amazing. So I would love if you could tell us what that is about for those who haven't yet read it, and where you got the inspiration from.
Yeah, sure. So those 3 words is it's part of a series. Technically, it's the Chicago Billionaire series, but it's not like a series like I normally write. There's no interconnected characters. You'll never see anyone pop up in any of the other books. They're complete actual standalone. So the only thing putting them into a series is the fact that they're billionaires in Chicago. But so yeah, this is the story. He's kind of grumpy. I love a grumpy, brooding billionaire. I mean, who doesn't? He's damaged. But so he's a single dad, and his wife passed away, and so he's kind of buried himself in his work, and he kind of has, I don't want to say resentment towards his little girl, but every time he sees her, he sees his wife, and so it's hard. And so this young nanny gets hired. He ends up his housekeeper hires this young nanny. And so there's the age gap, which I love a good age gap too. And she's a little more free spirited and not really sure what she's doing with her life, So we see their relationship kind of. She helps him see like he needs to be there for his daughter. Obviously he's fighting all these feelings that he has towards her, and vice versa. And there's a lot of like really tense moments. And that was like my goal for this book. Like I knew that I kind of wanted to kick the heat up a notch. Like all of my books I consider very steamy contemporary romance. Like I would never say any of them are even PG-13, probably not PG-13. They're all pretty rated R. But I thought, I kind of wanted to do something a little more even edgier, a little steamier. And I wanted to have it be a slow burn, but like a really intense slow burn where you see those like him fighting that attraction. And it's like these really sexy moments. My favorite one is the one in the pantry. That's all I'm going to say. You have to read it to know what I'm talking about. But I felt like the inspiration for this is probably going to sound really weird, but I was a nanny after college, and that was not my experience at all. I had a wonderful family, and that is not where the inspiration came from. But the inspiration I was like, oh, it'd be cute to write a nanny romance. I've seen them. I think I may have read a few. But growing up, one of my all-time favorite movies was The Sound of Music. And I had such a crush on Captain Von Trapp. And I remember like, how he kind of resented his children because his wife passed, and there was that disconnect there. And I thought I would love to write kind of that little element into a story about a nanny, obviously not with 7 kids or whatever, but I kind of was like, oh, I could kind of make like take that idea and implement it into this. And that book, like I had a couple books of mine that I feel like they just like, they just flowed out of me. Like there was no like, oh, I'm just going to write a couple thousand words. It was like, next thing you know, I'm like, holy cow, I've written 10,000 words. It just kind of came out so quick, and I loved every minute. And I was so nervous to publish it because I was like, I don't know, maybe my readers will think it's a bit too much, and when the feedback started coming in and people were like, I need more. I was like, I have more. There's more coming. So I actually, the third book in that series, I finished. It's with my editor now. And I'm about to start book 4. So, and they're all, like I said, total standalones. But I was blown away by the feedback and the reception of that book. It gave me such a confidence boost to be like, my gut's not crazy. Like this is what I feel like I should be writing. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And I just can't believe how high it got in the store. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
What is your writing process, and what does for your business, what does your structure look like? Are you working 9 to 5? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? What does it look like for you?
So I'm a pretty big plotter now. I feel like I can, but I'm kind of both. So usually what like I do, I'm definitely not a 9 to 5 writer. I have been, if I get behind. I ended up getting COVID pretty bad a while back, and that kind of threw a wrench into things. So I remember like, for like playing catch up to get my manuscript done into my editor, I had to kind of really do some intense, like 4 chapter a day type days. And my chapters are usually 2,500 words. So I tend to, I kind of, so like, okay, I feel like with my writing type and schedule, it's very, very like mundane, but I stick to it every single time I write a book. It's the same process. I come up with an idea in my head, and sometimes it's just like, so those 3 words, for example, I knew that title and what the 3 words were going to be. That's what I knew. And then I wrote the book around that. And it's not always like that. Sometimes it's like a whole plot in my head. But what I'll do is I'll sit down and I kind of just have like what I call stream of conscience, where I'll just be like, okay, and I talk to myself while I do this. I just kind of talk through the story in my head. I'm like, okay, so sometimes I'm on my Peloton when I'm doing this. Sometimes I'm walking laps around the island in my kitchen. I'm just talking through like the very general idea. And I'm like, okay, there's this single dad. He's a billionaire. He's grumpy because of this and this happened. And then I'll sit down and I'll write that whole plot out. And sometimes it might only be like 1,200 words. Fine. But then what I start to do is I start to break it up into chapters. And then each chapter I'll develop a little bit more. And so sometimes my plot might be 10,000 words long. And then other times my plot might only be 3,000 words. And so I consider myself a plotter, but also a pantstress. Because like sometimes I will have, currently the manuscript I'm writing, I had the whole plot kind of outlined up until about chapter 10. But I noticed that my chapters were incredibly long. I kept pushing stuff back, pushing it back to the next chapter, and then changing this chapter. And so it was kind of like plotting as I went along too. So, but I never just sit down with no plot just up in here. I'm jealous of people that can do that. I think like Nora Roberts is like that. I think Stephen King might be like that. They're just, I mean, maybe someday I'll get to that point. But I feel like at first, I remember like when I first started writing, I didn't write a plot. And so I remember getting to like a third of the way through the book or even halfway through the book. And I was like, oh no, where's this going? I haven't hit the crux yet, or I have hit it too soon. We're accelerating down this hill towards the end of the book. And I feel like I've left so much out. So that's kind of how I do that. But when it comes to like my actual writing process, I plan out my year in advance. So I know every single month what I'm publishing, if I'm publishing every single month, or what months I'm taking off. And so what I do is I will pick the dates. I'll say, okay, I'm going to publish this book on this date. And then I always work backwards from there. I say, I give myself about 6 to 8 weeks to write a book. For some people, it may be 6 months. Some people might be 2 weeks. It's, you have to figure out what works for you. So I know my sweet spot for words. I usually do about 75 to 80K. I would like to write longer books. That's where I just struggled. I'm not quite sure how to get them to be 150K, maybe someday I'll work towards that, when I have a little bit more time between books. But right now, like I'll give myself 6 to 8 weeks. And so I tell myself, like, I just do 2 chapters a day. I don't work weekends. I made sure that I don't do that just because I need some downtime. Otherwise I'll get creatively like burnt out, or, I mean, we're human. We just need some downtime. So, and giving myself like 8 weeks, that also builds in days when I might not feel great, or I just feel like I can't write, or I need to run errands, I'm too busy. So if I could tell myself, you can write 1 to 2 chapters a day, I know that I can finish my book up, especially if I'm writing 5,000 words a day. I know that I can finish it in plenty of time so that I can go back through to kind of do a second draft before getting that to my editor. And I always make sure that my editor, our dates align. So I'm not just like finishing up and then sending it to her and she's, booked or busy or something. So yeah, like it's a very simple process, but I can stick to it. It works for me. And I hate overcomplicating things, and I used to in the past, in the beginning, and I would just stress myself out. But I've just kind of learned to listen to my gut over the past couple of years, and it served me well so far. So we're just gonna stick.
Averagely, what is your book's word count, out of curiosity?
I would say now 75 to 80K. In the past, they were definitely more like 55 to 65. And I started like, I would get feedback from people that would be like, oh, I loved the story, but I kind of felt like it ended a little too abruptly, or I wish I would have seen a little more character development. And I used to really be scared of that. I used to be really scared of, I guess you could say, like mundane dialogue between characters. But now I really lean into it, because that's where you can tell their story. You can tell their background. You can explain what's going on in their head, why they're so apprehensive to fall in love, why they're scared of it, their past or what they're thinking. Because, oftentimes we're going to spill more with our girlfriends about some guy than we are going to his face, about struggles or doubts or whatever. And so I really like to lean into that now. And you can kind of showcase their personality a little more with, like, maybe they're like the funny one, or maybe they're the emotional one. And, their friends will tease them about that, and it's a great way to build up those secondary characters so that when they have their own story down the line in the series. So yeah, I would say it's hopefully they get a little bit longer. That's the goal.
I'd love to talk about readers, because readers are what make the dream come alive. What has been one of the most memorable reader interaction moments for you?
Just overall, I'm still shocked at times. I'm like, if a reader emails me or messages me, I'm just like, I freak out. Or when I see people do TikToks or like Instagram edits of my books, I'm just like, I can't believe people like my books. I can't believe that they want to do this and they want to, like, it means so much to me. All those little things mean so much to me. And like having readers like message me and be like, hey, are you coming out with something new? I've missed your work. I'm just like, oh, it kills me when I'm like, I'm so sorry, I had to take a month off, I have a lot going on, or I'm moving or something. But I'm like, those just mean so much to me. I guess I just still can't get over it. I'm kind of I'm a pretty big hermit when it comes to like book signings. I don't do anything like that. I just I don't know, social anxiety. But I did get to meet a reader, and she's so sweet. And this was recently, and she was at a book signing and kind of like introduced me to some other authors. I was not there as an author signing, but it was like, she was just so warm. Like I was like profusely sweating standing there. I was just so nervous. I was so awkward. But like she took me around to like meet other authors, which was awesome. And she wanted signed copies of my books, which I still can't get over when people say that. And I'm just like, why do you want my books? But like it just kind of is crazy to me. But I honestly like all of it. I think I suffer from imposter syndrome really bad. And so I think having readers just reaffirm things to me, I'm like, that's it just blows my mind. And I cannot express my gratefulness and my thankfulness enough to them, because they've literally changed my life. So I don't have like a specific one, but I just say like all of them, because it blows my mind. It honestly does.
We're sending out all the love. Thank you, everyone. All the love. I would love to know about the moment when you found out you were an Amazon best-selling author, which is an amazing accomplishment. So congratulations. And how did you celebrate?
So I think like my big, those 3 words was huge. That's I think it topped at number 14, I think, which is, I still can't get over it. Like I just can't get over it. And Before that, the other book that did really, really well for me was Claiming Her Forever, which was book one in the Men of Rocky Mountain series. That one, I think it was number 21. And I remember I was like, I kissed the top 20. She didn't quite make it, but I was so close. It's just like, it was like, that one meant so much to me because this is going to sound so silly. But like, that book was Claiming Her Forever. I wrote that book in I feel like it was less than 2 weeks, less than 14 days. I wrote that book. It just poured out of me. And I was listening to Taylor Swift's Folklore album on repeat. And I was in my feels. I was so emotional. I remember like crying in the shower as I'm like thinking through the scenes. And I just like fell in love with those characters. And I knew as I wrote that series, I was like, this one's going to be kind of angsty. And the reason why, like I mentioned earlier about, going through a huge life change, like divorce and heartbreak, and just feeling like you're starting over. It was almost like having everything that your whole life you've planned out with this person. You have to mourn that loss because it's not happening now. And I think oftentimes people don't talk about that enough, how devastating it is. And so I channeled all of that pent up pain from years ago. I honestly feel like into that series, which was really emotional and angsty. I mean, we're talking like, all different sorts of things we saw these people go through, like second chances and infidelity and all these things that are just so hard. And I remember it was so cathartic to pour myself into that. And so when I saw that it was received really well, it just like, it made me so grateful. And I was really just so happy that it just like kind of reaffirmed like, okay, this is what I should be doing. And I want to be an even better writer now. So then when those 3 words did so well, it was almost just like, I was like climbing up that mountain, and it was the last little boost I needed to be like, yes, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. And I hate to admit this, but when I think about it, I don't think I ever celebrate. um, I'm such a, I feel like every time that I finish my book, I'm like on to the next one. And I never take the time to just be like, let me chill out and celebrate this. I did. I think I went to dinner one night and I raised a glass and toasted but I didn't really like celebrate. And I'm not sure why. I think it's unfortunately probably imposter syndrome, where I'm always like, you know what, it could be gone tomorrow, so don't celebrate too hard. So I should.
A challenge for you. Next release, you are going to have such a big moment to embrace your amazingness and celebrate.
Thank you. I should. I just need. I don't know. I think I'm like, I don't know. I think I just kind of forget. I was really going to celebrate when I left my corporate job, and I don't think I ever did that either. Now that I think about it, I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, well, here's to that. But I need to come up with some traditions for that. Like sometimes I'll tie it into something. Like I recently went on a little trip to Savannah, Georgia. I had never been down there. And so it was kind of one of those things where I was like, we'll just pretend I'm celebrating. Yeah. Those 3 were doing really well too, so I might, kind of tie it in, but yeah, I'm really bad at celebrating any of that, which stinks. That should change.
What would you say your top 3 tips are for fellow authors when it comes to marketing? Because marketing is one that a lot of people often struggle with. So what have you found that's worked for you consistently over the years?
So, yeah, marketing is tough. I'm not going to lie. And it's expensive. I think that sometimes people, think that like it's a very cheap hobby or business to get into. And it's not. I mean, yes, it's free to write a book. It just takes time. But anything you put into it, whether it's editing and designing and all these things, I mean, they're not cheap, and you don't want to go cheap because you want to make sure you're delivering a quality product to your readers, because they're spending their hard-earned money and time to consume this product that you've put together. So that's kind of like one of the first tips that I think ties into marketing really well, is make sure you're actually getting really quality editors and graphic designers, because that is that one look that people have. And I feel like there's kind of like, there's 2 different, like love at first sight type situations with the book. Either it's the cover, so you want to make sure you have a really eye-catching cover, or it's the blurb, that little detailed description about your book. And I don't say summary because it's not meant to just summarize the book. So like making sure that your landing page, wherever you're selling your books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever, make sure that those two things are not only cohesive. So you want to make sure you don't have like a really dark looking cover, but then the text about the book is like flirty and fun, because that's confusing. And I've done stuff like that before. And it doesn't translate well. Readers, they get confused, they just don't buy it. So I think having a really cohesive package that people, when they see that for the first time, it's going to resonate with them and it's going to tell them what the book is about. Like, I feel like those 3 words, for example, when you see that man on the cover, I instantly think that guy is a smoking hot single dad billionaire. Just looking at him, he gives me that vibe, so I think that that's really important. But also, I personally market with Facebook. That's been my biggest thing that has worked for me. I know that like I'm trying to get into TikTok, but my goodness, I am the worst. Oh my God. I love to peruse TikTok. I can spend hours, but when it comes to making content, I'm like, oh my goodness, props to these 17-year-olds making a living off of this, because I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, I think like whatever marketing, if you chose to do like Amazon ads or Facebook ads or BookBub ads or Instagram or TikTok, like stick with it, because it really takes a lot of time. I think for me personally, it took a lot of money to over time. I mean, not like right up front, of just like, and patience. Like I had to think about like, what can I target, that people are going to want to, that aligns with my books, like other authors or genres or things like that. I think that's, you're going to have to like, it's trial and error, unfortunately. You're going to have to realize, like, some people will do really well advertising just to the UK, or advertising just to Australia, or just the US, or whatever country you decide to advertise, or maybe you want to do all of them, whatever you want to test. But that testing, like if you're going to do some sort of like paid marketing, like ads, I mean, it's so much testing. Like I ended up kind of just focusing in on like Facebook and stuff, just because I felt a little overwhelmed. I wouldn't spread yourself too thin. That's another one. It's like, don't try to like throw everything at the wall, just one at a time. Test things one at a time, to see what works. I think personally, like build up a nice back catalog. Like I would have like 3 or 4 books already out before you really start to advertise. Because if you're just like, oh, I have the money and I want to really advertise this first book, well, you're not really having anything else to kind of pick up the slack in the back. Like your readers aren't going to have, a steady flow of other books to read. So I was that 3 things for advertising?
4, but there was a bonus in there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so, and I feel like marketing is so hard. It is. I have no experience in marketing. I am not a businessy minded person when it comes. Like I said, my undergrad was in politics and law. I had nothing to do with marketing and business. And for a long time, I avoided that, side of the business, because I thought, oh, I hate it so much. But actually, I really enjoy it now. I love kind of looking at my analytics and breaking things down and seeing where I can improve. But I still have trial and error to this day. I still will test things. Oh, this didn't work, whatever. And like, for example, TikTok. I mean, TikTok is like, if I could give any advice to authors now, get on TikTok. It's free. It is 100% free. Don't set it up as a business account, because you can't use all the trending sounds. Use those trending sounds. Follow a ton of bookstagrammers. See what's working for them. I mean, I had a video get like 50,000 views in a few days one time, and then they deleted it. But because it was a little too naughty for TikTok. But I learned my lesson. And like, I learned what hashtags not to use. So don't use the For You page hashtag if you're putting spicy content on there for other people to see. But yeah, like, really just kind of follow what other authors are doing on TikTok. Because I have seen some authors are like, they become bestsellers just from TikTok. Like, it's free advertising. It's wild, That's why I always kick myself. I'm like, You need to get on this.
This is my favorite question to ask. What is the goal? What is the big dream that you are chasing for your career? The bigger, the better.
Okay. So I've never like shared my ultimate dream with anyone outside of like my immediate family. I know, because I'm always like, because the imposter syndrome, I always feel like people are gonna be like, oh my goodness, you think you can get that? Like, get out of here. You're crazy. Your books aren't that good. They're, you know, mediocre and they pass the time. But I'm like, you know what? I'm only gonna get better with time. The more you write, the better you get. That I feel like, you know? So my ultimate dream is I would love to have like either a Netflix series or movie or an HBO one, like a mini series like they do, or like an HBO original. Like that's the dream is, or Hulu, one of the streaming giants. I would love to do a series. I would love for it to probably be like the Slade brothers because I'm currently writing the second gen and the Men of Rocky Mountain ties into that. So I feel like it could just be so many delicious mountain men everywhere. And you know, we have some of the serious side of that with like that Yellowstone TV show. So I'm like, we need kind of the sexier part, which I guess Virgin River is on Netflix, but that's my ultimate goal, honestly. It's just that would be my dream. I think I would die and it would be wonderful. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. That my friend all the time, he tells me, it's like, if that ever happens, like you have to invite me to set and I want to meet all the actors. I was like, I would be too scared to do that. I'll just be in the back. Like nobody knows me. I'm just gonna be back here. But yeah, that's like honestly my ultimate dream. I just think it would be so much fun. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't take away from the joy of the job of writing.
And that's amazing though. I love that goal. What do you have it on your visualization board? Are we're manifesting this, I'm assuming?
I do, yes. And I write about it in my little manifestation journal. And I write as like it's already happened. And it's, I don't know, it would just be, you know, and I try not to focus because then sometimes I get nervous and I'm like, oh no, but what if it's like, what if the movie version ruined the book? And I'm just like, you know what? No, we're not going to focus on any of that negative stuff. Yeah.
I love this. I'm so excited for you. I'm putting out those good vibes and good thoughts as well.
Yeah.
So I can't wait until it happens. I do have a little last bit. It's called Speed Dating with an Author. I've lit a candle. I've created ambience. But basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
Right. I am ready.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Oh, God. My whole life. Oh, my goodness. My nickname was Gracie growing up because I'm so ungraceful. Yeah. Okay, so the ultimate one that comes to mind was in college. It's my sister teases me about it all the time. I was going up the 3rd flight of stairs, and the landing was kitty corner to a classroom that was full of people, and I was going to my class the classes were almost over, and my next class was about to start. So I was like jogging up, and it was winter, so I had a pea coat on, and I had my hands in my front pockets going upstairs, and I was kind of like bouncing along, and I fell, and I could not get my hands out in time, so I was like a seal, you know, like rolling around, made a loud noise, and like everyone in that class, including the teacher, stops teaching to like look at me like, what's going on? No one offered to help me. No one said anything. Everyone just looked at me like, what is this girl doing? So I was like scrambling to pick my stuff up and get down the hall, but I was like, oh, great. Well, I had several moments like that in college. I took out 3 people one time falling down some stairs. And so, yeah, I'm not a very graceful person whatsoever, but
Oh, it's funny.
So a lot of clumsy moments.
What is the 3 words that would best describe you?
Ooh, I would say, I think driven is a good one. I think I have goals, and when I set my mind to them, I feel like I knock them out, or I try my absolute hardest. I'm not gonna quit. So I think driven is a good one. I think loyal too. I think I'm a really loyal friend and partner. Like I'm gonna have your back. I'm always gonna be there for you. Lastly, I would say I would say I'm pretty sassy. Like I'm pretty sarcastic. I try to like put that in my books with some of my heroines, like they can be a little snarky, or some of the side characters. I always like to put that in there because I would say I'm a pretty sassy person.
What is your life motto?
Oh, okay. So my life motto, which I actually got from I love the Erin Condren like planners. And in her planner, she has like these little divider pages that have quotes. And one of them says, "Your life is a book. Write well and edit often." And I mean, obviously I'm an author, so I have to love that. But I ripped it out and I put it on my refrigerator because it's such great feedback. Like, I mean, not feedback, but advice, like, because like you could be going along in life and miss an opportunity because you don't kind of self-reflect. And, it's okay to like abruptly change your life plan. I feel like I did that 100%. I'm doing something I never set out to do. So yeah, I think it's a great quote, and I try to live by that.
What is the song that best describes you?
So I don't know if this is the one that describes me, but it's kind of like my little theme song it's still my little theme song that when I put it on while I'm walking or running, it always amps me up. And I'm like, every time I feel a little bit doubtful about things, I listen to this song. It's by Panic at the Disco, and it's called High Hopes. And so, yeah, he basically is talking about how he was like, I didn't have a dime, but I had high hopes. And that's all I had to live on, because I felt like that was me. Like I said in the beginning of this, like I was literally financially destitute after things kind of just imploded in my life. I felt like I just did not, I was so lost. And all I had was hope when I published my first book. I was like, I remember saying like, this is it. This is going to be that thing that changes my life. And it was, and all I had was hope. And so I constantly like remind myself of that, because I'm like, you can no matter where you are in life, it doesn't matter. Like you can still have hope for something more, something different, and I feel like I still do, I still have goals and hopes and dreams. So that's a great song. If anyone needs a pick me up, it's a very catchy tune. I would highly recommend that song. I like it a lot. I just listened to it like 2 days ago. I was out on my run. I was struggling. So I put it on and I was like, yeah, I got this. It's my Rocky moment.
What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I don't know. Oh, wait. Well, I played the violin for 15 years. So I went to kind of a fine arts school, and there was a big emphasis on music and performance. So I learned, we had to start learning an instrument young. I started with piano in kindergarten, and then in 5th grade, my parents told me, choose whatever instrument, you're sticking to it. There's no quitting. So I wanted to play the cello, but I was quite small. So we went to the violin, and I played all through elementary and high school and college. And yeah, so I guess that would be like my hidden talent.
I have had so much fun having you on today. What is coming out? What do we need to be on the lookout for? And most importantly, where do we find you?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me. I am on pretty much all the socials. I'm on Instagram, Alexis Winter author. Let me double check that, because I think I changed the name a while back. But yeah, like I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. Alexis Winter author is where you can find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, and I have like a little reader group. It's Alexis Winter's Wild and Wicked Reads. A fan named it that, actually. I had a little contest. And I wanted to start doing more like giveaways and stuff again. I kind of took some time off from that just because I've been deep in my writing cave. But so you can expect some really good things coming out. So like I said, right now I have the Slade Brothers second generation, which you don't have to read the first Slade Brothers series. It's not, it's all the parents, but if you want to, it's a great place to start. But the second generation is coming out July 18th, that book. So this month, I'm very excited for that. That's coming out. Yeah. And I'm currently writing book 2, which will come out probably September. But then in August, we have another standalone billionaire book coming out, and it's called Just This Once. And I love it. I feel like it's great. It's another a little more steamy, and kind of, I want to say a slow burn, but like not a slow burn, meaning there's no tension. I mean, there's a lot of tension right out the gate. So those are coming out. So I plan on publishing every single month for the rest of the year. I took like 2 months off from publishing anything new. But also the Men of Rocky Mountain, that box set will be coming out. I've had several people ask me, because I tend to put my box sets out, but I've just been so delayed. So that's going to be coming out. I have another holiday book coming out this year in November, which I'm super excited about, because last year, my holiday book did really well, which by the way, we're having a little Christmas in July sale on that in a couple days. But yeah, I mean, you can expect more of the, cowboys coming from me from Colorado and the Slades, more, naughty little billionaires coming out. And like I said, a holiday book. I'm going to try maybe to do another book in the Four Forces Security series. That one got a little delayed. Those are like the alpha military guys. I kind of had to take a step back from them just because I put a little too much on my plate. But yeah, so much good stuff coming out. I'm so excited. I can't wait for everyone to read. I really am excited for Just This Once because I hope it's received as well as Those Three Words and Dirty Little Secret. So yeah, a lot coming out. So I hope everyone's got their Kindles ready.
Yeah, my goodness, you are a busy woman, but I'm excited. Congratulations. And we'll find a month somewhere where we can have a little celebration. That is also a part of the plan, yeah?
Yeah. I'm planning. I'm like, I've got to do something. I've got to. My birthday's in October, so I'm like, maybe I'll do something then.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I have had so much fun. Who knows? Maybe watch this space. We might get you on next year and see where you're up to.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be kind of cool. Do a little look back.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, I'm gonna love you and leave you. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye, guys.